difficulties, Trustee Carabella, so I didn't hear that he had voted or not voted. It was just a matter of whether he was in or out. So it doesn't change the content of the actual minutes.
Actually, Madam Chair, point of order, it does change.
Sorry, hold on. Trustee, I'm not going to do this tonight. So if you want to be recognized, you can state point of order.
Point of order does not require recognition.
Put your hand. Actually, you still need to be recognized, Trustee Intomasi. So I'm not sure where you're reading that.
Bylaws say that point of orders are allowed to.
First warning, Trustee Intomasi. And well, again, if you continue and you're out of order, you will be warned. Trustee Intomasi, state your point of order, specifically what bylaw has been violated. The number, please.
The point of order, first and foremost, has precedence, which means it doesn't require. Number two. Number two.
Are you there? Trustee Intomasi, please state what your point of order is.
I just did, Madam Chair.
We did not hear you, Trustee Intomasi.
So I will try again. My point of order supersedes having to be recognized. It allows me to interject.
Trustee Intomasi.
I'm talking, I have the floor.
You know what? No, you know what, Trustee Intomasi? That's not what you put a point of order for. Please do not clarify or correct me. State what your point of order is. I know how a point of order works. I do not need to be told from you. Now, what is your point of order?
My point of order is, as Trustee Carabella stated, if there was a voting error that Trustee DeRosa was not present,
I'm sorry,
we have him recorded as in favor, those minutes need to be amended.
Trustee Intomasi, you didn't state a point of order. You didn't state what bylaw has been violated. Therefore, we're moving on.
It's so the minutes, Madam Chair. It's the correctness of the minutes.
Policy this is your second warning, Trustee Intomasi. Policy I-14, smoking/vaping ban. Item 6.1.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I insist to take this matter to a vote.
That is your third warning, Trustee Intomasi.
16.1 states that the minutes have to be correct.
Sorry, what bylaw? What bylaw, Trustee Intomasi? Again, you still have yet to state what bylaw has been done. And if you speak again without being recognized.
16.1, Madam Chair. I've said it 5 times.
No, you haven't. You know what, Trustee Intomasi? I would ask that you either refrain from speaking the way you do, or you leave the meeting, or you will be removed.
Madam Chair.
It's not a debate, Trustee Intomasi.
Point of order, 16.1. Please rule on it.
Oh, give me a moment while I pull them up. But if you speak again, we will be dealing with that. 16.1, as a member of the school board, it says duties of the board. So that is not, so I rule that it is not a point of order. Moving on to item 6.1. Can I have a motion, please?
15.3.
Recommends there is no 16.3, Trustee Intomasi, and that is it. It's done. I've made
15.3, Madam Chair. 15.3.
Can I have a motion, please, that the policy committee recommends that policy I-14 smoking/vaping ban be forwarded along to the November 16th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval.
Trustee Agnew?
By Trustee Agnew. Can I have a seconder, please?
Duart.
Thank you, Trustee Duart. We have Superintendent Bakaich. I'll put it on to you.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Our purpose is to provide for the consideration of the Policy Committee revisions to Policy I-14 smoking vaping ban as recommended by staff. Policy I-14 smoking vaping ban was reviewed as part of the regular policy review cycle. The references have been updated to include the Regulation 268/18, which supports the implementation of the Act. As well, the links have been updated and minor housekeeping changes have been made. The revised Policy I-14 smoking vaping ban is attached for review and consideration by the Policy Committee. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Bakaich. Do we have any questions in regards to this policy? Trustee DeRosa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't intended to speak. I was intending to raise a point of privilege on the previous discussion, Madam.
What is your point of Trustee DeRosa?
It's very simply that we approved, we passed the minutes that.
This isn't a point of privilege, Trustee DeRosa.
Point of privilege is that we've just passed.
It's not a point of privilege.
I'd like to finish, Madam Chair, please, if you will, and I will be very cordial, so long as I can finish my sentence.
As
okay?
long as your sentence is a point of privilege.
The point of privilege is that we've just approved the minutes that are wrong. And
So
when do I get an opportunity?
That is not a point of privilege, Trustee DeRosa. We will be moving on. So as you can see, Trustee Agnew has kindly posted in the chat what 15.3 is. Nowhere does it mention approval of the minutes. So
when can I get my issue looked into and corrected if appropriate? Otherwise, it reflects the wrong position in the minutes. When can you guarantee me that, Madam Chair? I'm perfectly willing to wait until the next meeting. But give me a resolution because the minutes are wrong.
DeRosa, enough. You're out of order. You no longer have the floor. You did not have a point of privilege. We're moving on. Does anybody have any questions in regards to this policy?
I do, Madam Chair.
Trustee Tomasi, is it in regards to this policy?
We're on the policy, are we not?
Yes, we are.
Then that's what I'll be speaking to, Madam Chair. All right, so this question through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Cordero and Superintendent Bakaich. Insofar as this policy, and it speaks to smoking and vaping ban, can you please provide me with information in the policy that speaks to religious matters that deal with smoke, i.e. incense, that we Catholic use in our ceremonies, and insofar as smudging feathers and other ways of celebrating for our Indigenous people. How does this policy speak to those matters?
Superintendent Bakaich or Director Daly, I'm assuming that we're talking about illegal substances that are not illegal, but substances that are specific to cigarette smokes and vaping is my understanding, but Superintendent Bakaich or Director Daly, do you want to take this?
Madam Chair, I can start off. So I believe Trustee Yantomasi is referring to the gift of tobacco, and there is a provision in the Act under Section 19 which provides for the use of tobacco as it relates to Indigenous celebrations and as gift offerings.
Thank you, Superintendent Bakaich, but I don't believe the gift of tobacco isn't them actually, people don't actually smoke it.
No, it's correct.
It's the gift is part of, anyways, okay. So, Trustee Intomasi, do you have a follow-up question?
Well, I have a follow-up, but I also want clarification. So I was not referring to tobacco. I'm referring specifically to smudging feathers. I'm speaking specifically to the burning of incense. This particular policy is to provide safety for all concerned insofar as secondhand smoke. Secondhand smoke comes in many forms, and I've just suggested 2 forms. And my question is very specific. Does this policy speak to those particular forms? And if not, is there legislation that overrides the ability to perform these ceremonies burning other forms of substances?
I'm not sure that Superintendent Bakaich, if you can answer that, because I'm not quite sure what burning feathers are. Superintendent Bakaich?
Thank you to you, Madam Chair. I'm not aware that we do any burning of feathers in any ceremonies, and I'm not sure, if not to my knowledge, do we light incense in the school setting. In a smudging ceremony, it's possible that they do light herbs, but I haven't, I'd have to take note of that and then follow up with trustees tomorrow, but I don't have any details on that.
Thank you, Superintendent
Right,
Bakaich.
I do have a follow-up.
No, Trustee Intomasi, we have other people in the chat. I'd ask
You haven't given me my follow-up. That was a clarification question.
No, that was a follow-up. Trustee Intomasi was very different from your first one. So we're moving to the next person. Trustee Carabella, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering under principles, the 6th bullet, whether we can hyperlink the Hcdsb Code of Conduct it refers to. It's not under the reference, or add it to the references, because it's not under the references. And I had a specific question about the Hcdsb Code of Conduct, because we have we have a Trustees Code of Conduct, Employee Code of Conduct, and I understand schools on their website will post Code of Conduct, but here it refers to Hcdsb Code of Conduct. Where is that found? Please, thank you.
Superintendent, thank you. Superintendent Bakaich?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Carabella, our Hcdsb Code of Conduct, I believe, is on our board website.
I think the question is it referenced here in the policy, Superintendent Bakaich, and if there could be a hyperlink to it?
We can certainly add the hyperlink, yes.
Okay, thank you. And maybe under the references, or either hyperlinked, or if it can show up under references again. Thank you.
Do we have any opposition to that? Okay. So Superintendent Bakaich, if you can, oh, son of a nutcracker. Sorry about that. I had technical difficulties there. My apologies. Sorry, Trustee Carabella, can you, did you have a follow-up question? I apologize if I missed it.
Oh, thank you. I do actually, but you didn't miss it. I just realized there was no sound, so I waited. I wanted to ask, in the bullet at the end of the page, the principal shall inform all students and parent guardians. So is this done by assembly and email, or how is this done? And also with the virtual format?
Superintendent Bakaich, do you want to take that?
Yes, I can, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Trustee Carabella. Yes, the students are informed at the beginning of semesters, and in our case, it would currently be quadmesters. The schools also have it in their codes of conduct, listed on their websites, as well as those schools who are still using hard copy agendas. And for the virtual school, I'm not sure if Superintendent Dinolfo is on, but I know that they do follow the same codes of conduct, and their sharing would be virtually in electronic form as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Seeing as there is none, we'll take it.
My hand is up, Madam Chair.
Trustee Intomasi, you have the floor.
All right. Continuing on smudging of feathers. For those who do not know, it is the cleansing smoke in a particular area. Given that we do have Indigenous people and given that we have other religious ceremonies within our school who do burn, and it's in keeping with secondary smoke, which is required under municipal guidelines, that no one is to be subjected to secondhand smoke. So my question again is, are we exempt, Catholics that is, because we are a Catholic institution, through our denominational rights? And as it pertains to our Indigenous rights, do they have the capacity to perform smudging ceremonies in all spaces that they occupy? And where does this particular policy speak to that function?
Sorry, Trustee Intomasi, I would actually ask, in some of the comments and some of the statements that you have made, that you're coming across in a way that is offensive. That being said, Superintendent Bakaich already stated that she would get back to you on that. She doesn't have an answer, so that's what we're going to take. And unless we have Ms. Savelle here to maybe who can shed a little bit of light on some of the comments and some of the questions you're asking, but I don't believe she is. So that being said, we will be moving on to a recorded vote. Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee Duart.
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
In favor.
Trustee Intomasi.
Abstain.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Masri Amar.
In favor.
And I am also in favor. The policy will be brought to the next board meeting, not next policy meeting, my apologies. Moving on to item 6.2, policy II-28, alcohol, tobacco, vaping, and drug education and abuse in schools. Can I have a motion, please, that the policy committee recommends that policy II-28, alcohol, tobacco, vaping, and drug education and abuse in schools be forwarded along with amendments to the November 16th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval?
Trustee Agnew.
Moved by Trustee Agnew, seconded by
Carabella.
Trustee Carabella. And we have Superintendent Bakaich. Pass it on to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our purpose is to provide for the consideration of the policy committee revisions to policy II-28, alcohol, tobacco, vaping, and drug education and abuse in schools as recommended by staff. Policy alcohol, tobacco, and drug education and abuse in schools was reviewed as part of.
Hold on, Superintendent Bakaich, just 1 second. Sorry. Whoever has their microphone on, can they please turn it off? There's rustling papers and it's very difficult to hear Superintendent Bakaich's report, which means our stakeholders will not be able to hear it. We'll just give it a second, Superintendent Bakaich, and then you can go ahead. Thank you. Sorry about that, Superintendent Bakaich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The policy has been reviewed as part of the regular policy review cycle. The references, including the addition of the regulation that supports the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, as well as the links, have been updated, and minor edits have been made to clarify language. The revised policy II-28, alcohol, tobacco, vaping, and drug education and abuse in schools, is attached for review and consideration by the policy committee. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Bakaich. I'll open up the floor to questions from trustees. Okay, last call.
Yes, Trustee, sorry, Madam Chair, I did have my hand up in the chat just above your comment.
Oh, sorry about that. Yep.
Yeah,
you do.
I-
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Trustee
I'm
Carabello.
sorry. I just want to clarify because the point I brought up was meant for this policy about the hyperlink to the HCDSB Code of Conduct and reference not to the previous, sorry, to the previous policy we just passed. So thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Is anybody opposed to that? Seeing that there's no opposition, Superintendent Bakaich, can we add that piece in this policy as well?
Yes, certainly, Madam Chair.
Awesome, thank you.
It'll go into this II-28 policy.
It'll go into both because we said it in the last one as well, so.
Just to clarify, Madam Chair, and I think Trustee Carabella, did you mean for,
But it doesn't matter though, Superintendent Bakaich, because that's how we voted on it.
okay, thank you for the clarification, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there any other further questions, trustees? Seeing as there is none, we'll take it to a recorded vote. Trustee Agnew?
In favor.
Trustee Dewart?
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa?
In favor.
Trustee Carabella?
In favor.
Trustee Antomasi?
Abstain.
I'm sorry? Was it abstain or opposed? I couldn't hear.
Abstention, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Murphy?
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Ahern Chernota?
In favor.
Trustee Masri Amar?
In favor.
I am also in favor. The policy will be brought to the next board meeting. Moving on to item 6.3, policy II-20, child abuse and protection of students. So can I have someone please move that the policy committee meeting recommends that policy II-20, child abuse and protection of students, be forwarded along with amendments to the November 16th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval.
I'll move it.
Moved by Trustee Agnew, seconded by Trustee Ahern Chernota. Thank you. And we have Superintendent Ballo, Ms. Atchison, our acting chief social worker, and Superintendent Oldman, Superintendent of Human Resources Services. I'm not sure who's speaking to this. If all three of you are, you have the floor.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, I'll begin with the action report. So the purpose is to provide for the consideration of the policy committee revisions to policy II-20, child abuse and protection of students, as recommended by staff. Policy II-20, child abuse and protection of students, was last reviewed in December of 2018, and it is in keeping with the policy review cycle. The references have been updated in the policy, and it includes the new process involving the electronic duty to report form. Revisions are included to provide consistency and to reflect updated terms throughout the policy. And the revised policy is attached for review and consideration by the policy committee. And as you noted, we have our acting chief and Superintendent Oldman, and we're happy to address any questions that the trustees may have.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent Ballo. We'll start with some questions. Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Baloff. Superintendent Baloff, in policy II-20, under principles, third bullet, the word parents is struck out. Can you speak to that?
Yes, and through you, Madam Chair, the statement in that bullet says volunteer parents, and changing it to volunteer is just inclusive of all volunteers, which would be inclusive of parents.
So, Madam, follow up.
Yes, actually, through you, just one second, Trustee O'Brien. I'm just going to ask Marta if she can pull up the actual policy, so the parts that you're asking about, if that's okay.
No worries. That's great.
Okay, sorry about that, Trustee O'Brien. Go ahead, you have a follow-up.
So just to make clear that all volunteers then do have a duty to report as well.
That's correct. And through you, Madam Chair. So all of our volunteers do have a duty, and that's included in the volunteer information that's provided to all of our volunteers at schools.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Carabella, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I was looking at this policy at the same time as the procedure that is linked to this policy. And so in the procedure, they do mention out sexual abuse, and I don't see that referenced here. And I wondered if there's a section on definitions that maybe should be added, or is there an explanation why that sexual abuse isn't brought to the forefront here?
I'm sorry, Trustee Carabella, can you just clarify, are you saying it's not there?
That's right. Well, in the procedures, there's a bit more about how to handle if there's sexual abuse.
Oh, okay, sorry, you meant the procedure. You said policy twice, so I was confused by
Oh.
what you were referencing. Okay, Superintendent Ballo.
Sure, through you, Madam Chair. I can call on our acting chief to respond to that piece, as she's our direct link to our children's aid.
Thank you. So we don't have specific definitions in the policy in terms of the types of abuse that I can recognize offhand. And I would have to refer to can you tell me which section of the procedure you're referring to?
Yes, so it was on page 23 of the report. It's page 3 of 5 of the procedure. And, well, it's actually crossed out, but
I don't see, can you tell me which bullet number it is? Is it?
It's 3.1.
3.1.
3.2.
Right, so it speaks to a student is the victim of assault, sexual assault or misconduct under the offense of the criminal statutes. So this is specifically referring to students who are over the age of 16. And there was a change in the Act in 2017. It became the Child and Youth Family Services Act, where all children under the age of 18 are subject to the Act. So this was struck out because this was specifically referring to how to support students over the age of 16 that were not covered by the Child and Youth Family Services Act, which they now are.
Okay, thank you. So you don't think that?
Do you have a?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Do you have a follow-up question, Trustee Carabella?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you don't think that it's important to mention sexual abuse or create a section in this policy of some definitions so that it's clear?
I would say the section that you're referring to in the procedure, 3.1, talks about assault, sexual assault, and misconduct. So it's covering all types of abuse that we would consider to be physical or sexual abuse. We don't have those definition pieces. I'm not sure if a definition page would be normally added to this sort of policy.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Is it a clarification or is it a follow-up?
Well, yes, it was. I'm not referring now to the procedure, but to put a definitions into our policy. And we often do have a definition section in our policies.
I'm just looking through the policy to see if I can see where that might be addressed. So it talks about risk of harm or for a student that has been harmed. Bear bear with me one moment, please, while I just find the section.
So in the actual policy, there isn't any definitions. I think that's what Trustee Carabella is asking for.
Right.
I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but abuse of any type is what this is referencing for. That's why it's left open, because it's any abuse will not be tolerated.
That's right. Absolutely.
Okay, Trustee Carabella, does that make sense to you? Like why it wouldn't be specific to sexual abuse? It's any type of abuse.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for asking. I would like to research that because I would imagine that these policies would have it spelled out more. I know in our bullying prevention, which bullying is a type of abuse, we had quite a definition section, if I remember. So I think it's worth considering.
I will say the Child and Family Services Act does not specifically define what, so they list various types of abuse, such as physical harm, sexual harm, but they don't define what that means. They just talk about that. That's just how they refer to it. Under the duty to report section of the Act, I don't see a definition specifically of the type of harm.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? And let's see here. Trustee O'Brien, you have your hand up?
Yes. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Oldman. Superintendent Oldman, under requirements 6th bullet, it says, requirement 6th bullet, the Director of Education, I'll wait you there. The Director of Education or designate shall report to the Ontario College of Teachers any teacher currently or formerly employed by the Hcdsb who has been charged or convicted of sexual misconduct under the Criminal Code. So my question is, just for clarification, even if there's not a conviction, Superintendent Ullman, is there still an obligation for the director to report the charge, just the charge to the college?
Well, thank you, Trustee O'Brien, and through you, Madam Chair. I guess in the 3rd bullet of the 6th, so the sub bullet there, I guess it would be discretionary depending on the charge at hand. You know, there are charges of potential grooming, and those are charges. Those are not convictions. I think when we're talking about a charge, I think that it would be prudent upon us to be reporting that, and that's that 3rd bullet there that I'm noting, which would be the opinion of the Hcdsb, where we think that it's conduct, even alleged conduct, that should be reviewed by the college. So I think that would be appropriate and really in keeping with the protection and safeguarding of students in our care.
Okay, so Madam Chair, a follow-up.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes. So if there is no conviction, say the charge, well, for whatever reason, it was trumped up or false, I'm not sure why. Is there some protocol in place to exonerate the teacher? Through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Ullman.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Through you, Madam Chair. I guess the process would be a due process, depending on if the board has reason to be investigating on their own account, and whether obviously that investigation would obviously have to be respectful of any overstepping, I guess, criminal investigation, even in a charged or alleged sense. Certainly, that would not be prudent on us to be overstepping in any such requirement, and that also in keeping with the CAS if there's any implications there. So I guess in terms of due process, we would wait for those investigations to complete. We would then follow our own if it's necessitated, depending on the allegation at hand. And through all of those processes, there may be an opportunity for clarification against a charge or a conviction of sorts, right? So, I mean, I guess that's the due process. And then I guess through the Ontario College of Teachers by extension, if it was in the purview or opinion of the Catholic, Hcdsb, that we did report to the Ontario College of Teachers, there's their own process there, given really the ethical underpinnings and the high standards of practice required both in their ethical standards of the teaching profession and the standards of practice for the teaching profession. So I suppose there's multiple intersections, so there would be multiple opportunities for due process.
So my question is, if at every level the teacher is cleared to the board level, because there's a board investigation, is there any kind of exoneration process?
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien, through you, Madam Chair. I suppose, I guess, trying to clarify.
Superintendent Ullman, I think Director Daly had his hand up for that piece.
Oh, apologies, Director
No
Daly.
worries, no worries.
Director Daly, that'd be great.
You're muted, Director Daly. You're on mute. We can see your lips moving, but we cannot hear you.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So Trustee O'Brien, if you mean like a public exoneration, no. But if an employee went through all of those various steps and ultimately was found not culpable in any of them, I guess I would say the exoneration would be they would continue in employment if that was the decision that we made.
Madam Chair?
Okay, Trustee O'Brien, we've got Trustee Carabella who's got her hand up in the chat, unless you have a clarifying question.
No, just a comment. I just think it would be an exoneration process, just having the teacher continue in their employment. I think that's the kind of thing when once you're charged, it's almost like you're stigmatized for the rest of your career. And I just think it's too bad there isn't some kind of exoneration process. Just my opinion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Carabella, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to mention that this policy came to the SEAC meeting this past month, and it was deferred to the next SEAC meeting so that the members of SEAC could see this policy. So I'm going to recommend that we don't actually take it back to the board, but or make an amendment that it goes back to SEAC. Now that we've seen it in policy, that it does go to the SEAC committee and then return back to policy or and then I guess go to the board table from there so that we can have their input. Do I need to make a motion for that, or do you remember that?
I remember it being moved because the comment was that it wasn't provided. However, I just asked Trustee Agnew, have you received any feedback from it? Because I think that was one of the things that was asked, is if you do have any comments that you didn't have to wait till the next SEAC meeting either.
No, we have not received any comments at all from any of the members, at least via email. I have not received any.
Okay, thank you. I do recall that conversation, and I don't have any objection unless somebody else has an objection. Does anybody have any objections to deferring it based on feedback from SEAC?
So point of clarification, we are asking us if we're all okay with it going back to SEAC first before coming to the board.
Well, it went to SEAC. It got deferred to their next meeting. So we can vote on it. And then if there's any further recommendations from SEAC, we can bring it back at policy.
May I comment on that, Madam Chair?
Let me make sure I've clarified for Trustee O'Brien first. Trustee Carabella, Trustee O'Brien, does that clarify it for you?
Just so I know this. So we're voting on sending it back to SEAC. If SEAC has no changes at all, it will go to the board.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Carabella? You have a question?
I just wanted to clarify that it really never went to SEAC for a discussion. The discussion was deferred.
We did say that, Trustee Carabella.
Thank you.
That was what was said. So that being said, we'll have a vote on it. However, we'll make sure that SEAC gets to have their input on before it goes to the board for final vote. So we'll make note, Superintendent Bakaich and Marta will make note that we won't bring it to this board meeting. We'll bring it to the first board meeting in December so that SEAC will get a chance to review it at the November meeting. So I'm going to take it to a recorded vote. Oh, sorry, Trustee Hearn-Charnota, and I see, I apologize, all these hands popped up. Trustee Hearn-Charnota, you have the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. When's the next SEAC meeting?
It's the end of November, so that's why we wouldn't bring it to next week's board meeting. We would defer it to the first week of December.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other questions? Okay, seeing
I
as
have
there's
my
no-
hand up, Madam Chair.
Sorry, Trustee Intomasi, is your chat box not working again?
You know what? Off and on.
Okay, just because it's easier to keep track. So, but you have the floor.
I understand. It's not in my control, Madam Chair. All right, through you, Madam Chair. So my question is as follows. What is our protocol at the board once a teacher and/or a staff member is charged? Do we not immediately ask them to be relieved of their duties with pay until such time as the matter or their charges are dealt with?
Thank you for that question, Trustee Intomasi. That is in the procedure, and we're just on the policy at this moment. So we can have that discussion once we get to the procedure. So that being said,
Can you show me where this is policy and you're speaking about procedure?
you asked what the procedure was for the teachers. We don't oversee that. We oversee the policy, and it's not listed. It's detailed in the procedure. So that being said,
Madam Chair, you just
we're
made a
having a
statement.
conversation about the policy right now, Trustee Intomasi.
This is not a policy. This is a policy and procedure. The policy is the statement after which comes the procedure. We're deliberating the procedure. The whole document is procedurally driven.
We're not at the procedure yet because technically we don't have governance over procedure. We have governance over policy as per the Education Act. Trustee Intomasi, you should know that. So we're dealing with the policy.
That
right
is
now.
incorrect, Madam
When
Chair, but
we're
I won't
dealing with-
quarrel. I let you run with.
So that being said, we're going to go to a vote, a recorded vote. Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa. Trustee DeRosa.
Madam Chair, are we voting to send it to SEAC or to refer it to SEAC?
No, we're voting on what we've discussed here. It's going to go to SEAC before it comes back to the board. In favor, opposed, or abstained?
Madam Chair, I procedural question.
Madam Chair, for clarification, you will get my vote one way or the other. I'm trying to clarify what I'm voting on. So
I just
what happens if
clarified to you.
What happens if SEAC sends it back to the policy?
Okay.
So SEAC doesn't send to the policy.
No,
They'll
what
just
happens as a result of the presentation? The SEAC decide to come back to policy?
Trustee DeRosa, I was trying to answer you. SEAC doesn't recommend to the policy. We're sending the policy for them to review. If
That's
they
not
have
what
any.
I intended, Madam.
Can I finish answering your question, Trustee DeRosa? I am just deliberating. If you'd give me an opportunity to say what I need to say, you'll understand what I'm saying. So that what I'm saying is it will go to SEAC. If they have any recommendations, it will come back. Can I finish?
Yeah. That's it, precisely what I'm asking. Will it come back to the policy or the board?
No, it'll come back before the board with recommendations before we vote on it at the board. Is that clarified, Trustee DeRosa? In favor, opposed, or abstained?
Madam Chair, with all due respect, we try to take care of tone. I would suggest that we practice what we preach. I'm in favor.
Trustee DeRosa, if you would actually listen back on the recordings to hear yourself, then you would understand the frustration. Trustee Dewart.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
You know,
Trustee Carabella, we're in the
I know. Yeah, so I'm going to say opposed because I think it has to come back to
Thank you.
policy.
Trustee Ian Tomasi.
I'm also opposed. It has to come back to policy.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
Opposed.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota.
In favor.
Trustee Masri Amar.
In favor.
I am also in favor. So this will go to SEAC before it comes to the board for final approval. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm trying to deal on 2 devices because I'm having technical difficulties this evening. Policy II.
Madam Chair.
Trustee Dewar, we're getting feedback from you. Is there a question?
Yeah, just so to understand, if SEAC comes back with something good and says, why don't we change this? Do we get an opportunity to discuss it again, or it goes to the board directly?
We discuss it at the board table, Trustee Dewar.
Okay.
Since when has anybody stopped from discussing policy at the board table?
Okay.
Happened. So
good.
I'm not sure how we can clarify this anymore. And
Yep.
I don't know what the pushback is. We're still asking SEAC specifically for feedback.
Good. Thank you.
Trustee Agnew, you have a question?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Just a comment that I can assure my fellow trustees that this is on the agenda. This policy is on the agenda for our next SEAC meeting. We will be discussing it. Should any information, feedback be provided at that meeting, it will be detailed, and we will make sure that that feedback is incorporated at the board table when this policy comes there. And I can ensure that it gets put into a report if need be. We can find the proper mechanism to bring that forward to make sure that that does come, in fact, to the board table when this policy comes there.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. So we are now moving on to item 6.4, policy II-23.
Madam Chair, have you taken this to a vote? I have not been asked.
Policy. You were asked, Trustee Ian Tomasi. You voted opposed.
My point.
You voted opposed, Trustee Ian Tomasi. I am in the middle of
I asked for, Madam Chair, I asked for a procedural question, which you didn't give me the floor. The procedural question that pertains to this particular policy. Are we now changing the procedure and we are allowing a committee, SEAC in this particular instance, to give direction directly to the board and not come back to policy? Is this what we're doing?
Trustee Tomasi, as you have pointed out at the policy meeting several times to me, sitting here as chair, is that this is simply a committee. This is not the board. Nothing is finalized here until it comes to the board meeting. So yes, SEAC has been asked to give feedback. They have the opportunity to still give feedback. Trustee Tomasi, this is my last comment on this, and I've already moved on. It's been voted on. We're done.
But Madam Chair, you need to explain what it is that we're doing. You're changing the procedures and protocols.
There is no procedure and protocol on how it goes. I beg to differ, but Trustee Tomasi, if you're so unhappy with the way I run this meeting, I suggest December's coming up, run for the chair of policy, and you can take care of things yourself.
Madam Chair, that comment is unwanted and it doesn't speak to the matter at hand. I asked a procedural question.
Point of order.
What is your point of order, Trustee?
My point of order is actually bylaw 10.8. It's consistently being violated this evening. It's hard to follow because of the constant interruptions. I can read the motion if someone needs me to read it, but this is unacceptable. We can't hear what's going on. People are getting confused. They don't know what to vote on, and nobody can get a word in edgewise. So I would like to ensure that my fellow trustees read 10.8 in the bylaws, which is very clear on interruption, and we heed to that bylaw so we can get through this meeting. Thank you.
Point taken. Your point of order is
in order. Thank you, Trustee Agnew. Moving
Madam
on to
Chair,
item
that is
6
correct.
point
Point of
policy
order. I was
II-2.
yielded the floor.
Trustee Ian Tomasi, again, the questions you have are procedural. When we get to that point, we can discuss them then. Moving on, can I have a motion, please, that the policy committee recommends that policy II-23 childcare facilities be forwarded along with amendments to the November 16th, 2021 regular board meeting for approval?
What?
Trustee Dewart, moved by Trustee Dewart, seconded by
Agnew.
Trustee Agnew. Thank you. Superintendent Merrick, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Just a few minor changes to the policy 2-23 childcare facilities. Some housekeeping ones there with some grammar and some cleaning up some language. Some of the, I guess, the larger ones of the minor variety, adding in that we would look at school building additions in addition to new construction for potential locations for childcare facilities. The ministry has been active in funding childcare facilities at both new builds and additions, so adding in the additions piece to the policy. And we'll know as a board that we've been successful in getting some of those funding for building additions like we had at St. Peter's and Bishop Redding and Milton. So just adding that into the policy to clean it up a little bit, and then also adding in a line on the prospective operators bidding on childcare operations at our childcare facilities must have a childcare services agreement with Halton Region, which of course they need to get the funding supports for their operating funding, and we also know that we need Halton Region has to back our applications to the Ministry of Education to get the capital funds for these projects. So they need that in order to qualify through Halton Region in order for us to get the funding to build these facilities. So just adding that in and trying to clean things up a little bit in there, but happy to take any questions that trustees may have on the minor amendments to policy 2-23.
Thank you, Superintendent Merrick. We'll open the floor to questions. Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota, you have the floor.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Merrick. And I just noticed in some of the changes, you did add addition to that, Superintendent Merrick. Is the reason behind that to make sure that's a gap that may have been in there before to close that in case we need childcare facilities when we make additions into our buildings?
That's through the chair. That's correct. I mean, we had done that in the past anyways. I mean, I guess with it not being in there, it doesn't exclude us from doing that in the past, but no, we have done it on a regular basis. If there's a need in the area and we're doing an addition to the school, we've asked for childcare facilities there as well. So just adding it in there to kind of clean up the language a little bit.
Perfect. Thank you for the explanation.
Do you have a follow-up, Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota?
No, not at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Antomasi, you have the floor.
I don't need it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll take, thank you, Superintendent Merrick. We'll take this to a recorded vote. Trustee Agnew.
In favor.
Trustee DeRosa.
In favor.
Trustee Dewart.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
In favor.
Trustee Antomasi.
Abstention.
Trustee Murphy.
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota.
I'm in favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee Masri Amar.
In favor.
I am also in favor. The policy will be brought to the next regularly scheduled board meeting. Moving on to item 7, discussion items. There are no discussion items this evening.
Madam Chair, just a question. Is this an opportunity to raise a question?
No, it's a discussion item. We're moving into another point. Is it specific to a policy or procedure?
Oh, I'm happy to wait if you give me the opportunity sometime this evening, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Since there's no discussion items, we're moving on to item 8.1, information items. Administrative procedure VI-32, child abuse and protection of students. And then 8.2, we have our upcoming agenda items.
Madam Chair, I had a question, sorry.
I just see your hand went up right now, Trustee O'Brien. Go ahead, you have the floor.
Thank you, through Madam Chair, to Superintendent Baloff. In the procedure, administrative procedures VI-32, child abuse and protection of students. Superintendent Baloff, I'm looking at section 2.3. It says, in order to minimize with any Halton Children's Aid Society's investigation, and in order to ensure that the rights of all are protected, under no circumstances will the alleged abuser be contacted or confronted about the incident. Madam Chair, could that be brought up? That's section 2.3 in procedure VI-32.
Yep, absolutely. Just give us a second. Okay, Trustee O'Brien, what is your question in regards to 2.3?
So again, it says under no circumstance would the alleged abuser be contacted or confronted about the incident. But then later on in section 4, it talks about removing the alleged abuser from all students. So at what point, so that bullet 2.3, is that just like on the first day this happens, the alleged abuser is not contacted? Like what, how does this roll out?
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm happy to respond.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Sure.
Superintendent Fallon.
No problem. To Trustee O'Brien. Yes, that's when a call is made to the Children's Aid Society. The call is made directly to the society, and a teacher or whichever individual is making that report would not reach out to the person who would be considered the alleged abuser about the incident. They take their direction from the Children's Aid Society, and it's the Children's Aid that determines the contact.
So at what point does the alleged abuser know that they are being alleged?
Through you, Madam Chair, that contact would come through the Children's Aid Society, who's responsible for investigating any incidents that are being reported.
Okay, so the first time the teacher would hear it would be from the Children's Aid Society.
And that's my understanding.
Okay, not the Halton Police or the director. Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And if there's anything further from our HR perspective, I'm certainly open to further input on that.
Superintendent Oldman, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you and by extension, Trustee O'Brien. I think the instance of how that kind of comes to life may be informed by the speed and the timing and obviously the urgency to act. So in some instances, there may be a reality where we are informed of a report, and then it would be prudent on us at that time to make direct contact, and that's kind of in contemplation of 4.1 and 4.3. Where we're trying to remove the individual for their own protection as well as the balanced protection of any students in the care. So there may be instances, to your question, where it may be that the board is informing that a matter has been referred to the CAS, as we understand, and for their own protection, they are removed or reprieved of their duties in accordance with 4.3.
So it could be the board or the CAS.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. So trustees, you will see that item 8.2 is all our upcoming agenda items for the December 14th, 2021 board meeting. Item 9, miscellaneous information. There is none. Item 10, it's correspondence. There was no correspondence to the board. Item 11, in camera. There's no need to return in camera. Item 12, motion to excuse absent committee members. We have no absent committee members, which moves us on to item 13, a motion to adjourn. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Trustee Agnew.
Moved by Trustee Agnew, seconded by
Stewart.
Trustee Stewart. Anybody opposed to adjourning?
Madam Chair, can I have my question now?
what is your question, Trustee DeRosa? And I will try to answer it as seeing we're done our agenda items.
Thank you. My point's very simple. We have proceeded with minutes that have been raised in question. Okay, all I want to know is, will there be an opportunity to correct the minutes even at a future meeting? Because they reflect currently not the position that I took.
So Trustee DeRosa, I've gone through the minutes and it says that there was an abstention. If you weren't in the meeting at that time, we'll have to go back to the recording, is what I had said, and we'll double check. If that is the case, it'll be corrected. However, we do not record when people have technical difficulties.
Madam Chair, your first part of my answer is satisfactory. No need to continue on. It's in the record.
Thank you.
Will be checked, and where corrections are appropriate, corrections will be made. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Is there anybody opposed to adjournment? We had a mover and a seconder. Seeing none, Trustee Carabella, could you lead us in the closing prayer?
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I would like us to pray the Our Father together. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.